in these days, isn't there? My goodness. All right, 2 Samuel. And it takes a little bit of a turn. And if you didn't know what you were looking for, you might not recognize it. In fact, I hadn't really started looking deep at chapter 21 yet last week. I studied chapter 20, and I commented on chapter 21. During the reign of David, there was a famine for 3 successive years, and it's almost like they get to this point and then just kind of speed up, I think I said. Well, I wasn't completely right on that, was I? Yeah, it goes backwards, and here's why. It's not trying to give us the chronological history. We know this, but often it's thematic, things that they're trying to bring up. And then there is a large section that is chronological, but it went through several things and stories that are chronological in nature about Saul being killed and Jonathan being killed, and then Absalom coming in and trying to take over, and that like all these things in order. But we get to chapter 21, and what happens is it's kind of an epilogue where it backs up and is going to make new points or explain the points, clarify the points of things that they've been touching all along. But in true Hebrew fashion, they don't come right out and say it. They just give a few more illustrations and expect you to understand what's going on. And so it's kind of, I did look, once I figured that out, I thought, well, how do I explain where each of these events went in the timeline? Like, where did they fit in? Because my brain wants to know that.
You shouldn't study Hebrew then.
No, it's not. But I am not a perfectionist. I am able to get to that point where I go, okay, it's really hard to figure out. If it was important, it would have been laid out for us. We're not sure exactly when this happened. So trying to look into that, even if I found it, to spend time on that could detract from the point it's actually trying to make. And so instead of thinking, how it's laid out, it's more, why was it done? Why was this given to us here? What's the significance of that?
I have a note that explains that from here to the end is a chiasm.
Oh, is it? A chiasm from 21 to the end? Or is it chiasming a lot of the things from the book?
Well, it says, while its top-down arrangement is striking, it also employs a literary pattern, ABC, CBA,
Right.
frequently found elsewhere in Old Testament literature. The first and last units, 21, 1 through 14, and 24, 1 through 25, are narratives of 2 events in which David had to deal with God's wrath against Israel. The second and fifth units, 21, 15 through 22, and 23, 8 through 39, are accounts of David's warriors. And then at the center...
Pause just for a minute. I'll have you do that in a moment. Is anybody tracking what she's saying? Be honest. Hannah, a couple of you. You know what a chiasm is, or a chiastic structure. And I've mentioned this before, and you'll hear me bring it up time to time. We do things Roman numeral 1, and then A, B, C, and then maybe a 1, 2, 3, and then we go to Roman numeral 2. And the Hebrews often would write C, B, A, B, C, and that would be their outline structure. And then when you get to the middle at the A, that's the point that they're making. So as you read through the Old Testament, a lot of times stuff sounds like, but didn't they just say that? Or it sounds like they're wording it almost the same. Go ahead.
You're almost right. Just clarifying a little bit, because you said CBA, BC. It's actually ABCBA, because C is the main point.
If there's only 3, but there's sometimes are more than 3 points.
I'm saying the middle, like just if in
But
our-
either way, the middle is the point,
Yeah,
you know.
okay.
And anyway, I lost my train of thought. Sorry. I wish I had a whiteboard so I could put these references up and walk through and show you, because each story is important. Oh, I know what I started to say. It's not only sometimes they just use the same words. We'll bring it together. Sometimes it's completely different words to us, but the themes are the same. It might be a theme of something in there, and it is the way they think. So you really find them throughout the Old Testament. Having said that, I don't know specifically yet what it is, but I'm interested to find out. When you bring those ABC or CBA together, in the middle, everything points to what verses and what's it talking about.
And it's gonna be, the middle is gonna be the songs of David.
Ah, it's going to be
22,
the Song of Praise, chapter 22.
yeah, 1 through 23:7.
So all of David's words are in the center of that chiasm. And then it's about okay, I see it. Because just to give you an idea, if you look at the end of his, remember, chapters and verses were not inspired. So just kind of look at it from 22:1 to 23:7. Those are all David's song of praise and last words. It's David speaking. The topic right after that would be about the mighty warriors and fighting men and things like that. And if you go back before that, if you go to the end of chapter 21, it's about wars against the Philistines. And right before that, about the war with, well, we'll get to it here in a minute, but about the Gibeonites and how that had to be resolved. So the point is, the author in this epilogue, is that the right word? Is recapturing kind of the theme of the book, themes plural, to say, all right, so let me remind you, and he backs up and says, so there was a time in while David was king, that these things happened, but they're not in chronological order. Does that make sense so far? Okay.
Yeah, they're in thematic.
They are in thematic order, yes. Let me ask you this. Who wrote 2 Samuel? Who was it not?
Samuel.
Wasn't Samuel. Okay? And in fact, 1 Chronicles, let me read this for you. You don't have to turn there. 1 Chronicles 29 and 29 says this. And it's right at the end of the last couple verses of 1 Chronicles. It says, as for the events of King David's reign, from beginning to end, they are written in the records of Samuel the seer. We know who that is, right? Mm-hmm. The records of Nathan the prophet and the records of Gad the seer, together with the details of his reign and power and the circumstances that surrounded him and Israel and the kingdoms and all other lands. So Samuel started it, and these other guys, Nathaniel and Gad, continued that on and just put it all under the name of Samuel. So that's who's writing it. They're being historically accurate, and they're looking, but it's an overview of the purposes and the reign of King David. And it is to prepare us to read 1st and 2nd Kings. That's really important for you to understand. We're almost at the end, so he gives us this epilogue. We're going to study it in a few weeks. They would have read it in a moment and read all these things, and now we're ready with the right attitude to read 1st and 2nd Kings. What do you think 1st and 2nd Kings are going to be about? Kings. Wow, there you go. See how hard this is to study the Bible? When you just take it at face value, you know. And so it's going to be about kings. What has the books of 1st and 2nd Samuel been about? Saul, David, who are kings. But it contrasts Saul and David. What are some of the contrasts we've seen between Saul and David spelled out in 1st and 2nd Samuel?
Saul didn't look to God for guidance.
Right.
But David did.
Correct. What else?
Saul did it all for himself, his glory.
Both of you are on to where we're going here. It's perfect. That Saul was in it for himself. David was in it for God or for others. What else?
Well, neither one of them were perfect.
Correct.
But one learned from mistakes and the other one didn't.
You're so close. One of the things that's going to come up here, you guys are doing a great job. Have you studied for this? Because I'm telling you, you're right on. Thanks. But it's the fact that neither one was perfect, but they responded to their sin differently. It's not just that they learned from their mistakes. One repented, the other one would not repent. But you right on the key. All right. We're about to read study two books where there are good kings and bad kings. And the Israelites will be blessed or not blessed depending on the king. I want you to think about that. Does leadership really matter to those underneath? Oh, yeah. Does it remove those underneath that leader? Does it remove them from responsibility for their actions? No. But does it affect the potential of their decisions? Look, if you've got a bad leader, people will follow that and they'll be guilty for following. But you have a good leader and they can lead you in the right direction and you're going to be blessed because you chose right because you had a good leader. Who you follow matters. It matters. Now, not entirely. Look, we go through voting cycles. We had voting yesterday. There will be people that will agree and disagree with how well the voting went. All right? This is not a political discussion tonight on who should have voted for what or who did. That's not the point. The point is, through voting cycles, you're going to win some and you're going to lose some, right? And when evil people are in office, will that affect America?
Yes.
Yeah, we've seen it. But that doesn't excuse you to go along with it. When we have the right people in office, does that help America to do better? Yes. But people still have individual decisions to make of their own sin nature or not. So we understand that. So none of this discussion is to alleviate guilt from the citizens, but to talk about how important it is to make it better for the citizens to have a better chance to do what's right, to have a right king. And the contrast between Saul and David was to set us up to see the difference for a right and a wrong king. And so you could basically, as we go through the kings, look back to these two and see roots. Here are some themes to watch for in these chapters as we're reading the epilogue of 1st and 2nd Samuel. And like I said, they almost seem like random events, but they describe these things. What happens when kings fail? Yeah, but that's what we're going to be looking for. We can answer some of it now, but we're going to see the answers as we read. But that's the first thing. One of the things we're going to be looking for is what happens when kings fail. Second thing we'll be looking for, what actually preserves the nation. I mean, Israel, after what it went through, the only reason they existed through 1st and 2nd Samuel was God. I mean, you think of the other armies that they had to fight against, and they were nomads. They didn't have a fortified city to start with. They were slaves escaping Egypt. What in the world has kept them not only alive, but thriving to this point? It's going to be the Lord. Here's another one. This is deep, and you're going to have to really look to follow this through, but we're going to see it. We've seen it a lot. We're going to see it more. And in fact, it'll be developed, and that is, it's more than just moment by moment, trusting God or not, or inquiring of the Lord or not, but it has to do with God's covenant with Israel. And watching God do his part in the covenant while we watched Saul and the way he responded to that covenant, and David and the way he responded to that covenant. And we're going to be looking at Solomon and how he responds to that covenant, and all the other kings, how they respond to that covenant. You see the thread throughout all of it is God's covenant. And if you don't look for that, and I'll be honest, I'm going to tell you, not many people take time to look at God's covenant throughout Scripture. And it is, I think, without understanding that, you won't understand 99% of the Scripture. It's all woven around God's Word. I don't mean this being God's Word, it is, but I mean of the legitimacy of God's Word, the covenant when He says so. And so we're going to see a lot of covenant faithfulness in it. It's so much bigger than what happened next. It's looking at the whole thing. All right, so now let's dive in slowly and gently. 21:1. During the reign of David, there was a famine for 3 successive years. So David sought the face of the Lord, and the Lord said, "It is on account of Saul and his blood-stained house. It is because he put the Gibeonites to death." So where's Saul now during this? He's already dead. Where's his family? Most of them, they're mostly dead. But there's a famine. Who's under the famine? Israel. For how long? 3 years. They've had a famine for 3 years over the actions of a dead guy. Now this is interesting, because even though it was led by Saul, who is God holding responsible?
David. And all Israel.
All of Israel. So what the king does matters, but yet it doesn't alleviate us of our responsibility to do what's right. And in this situation, it's the same. So a problem persists. I just want you to think about this for a moment. What is the one... I mean, when you hear that they had a famine for 3 years, so David inquired of the Lord, and God said it's because of Saul and his family. What questions rise up in your mind? Hannah?
Why did it take 3 years to inquire of the Lord?
Mm-hmm.
Why did it take so long after Saul died for the famine?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we don't know exactly.
We don't know when it was, right?
No.
And that's part of why I wanted to look into it. I want to know where in this it fit, and doesn't tell us, so we don't know. And so the timing of when that was not the key, but what is the key is it took them 3 years of famine before David said, "All right, this isn't right. God, what's happening?" Were they aware that God was angry with them over this sin prior to him bringing the famine? Is that a confusing question?
Probably not.
It seems that they wouldn't have been aware because they had to inquire and say, why is this happening? But that tells you how we can jump over a sin, and because God hasn't dealt with it yet, it's in the past. What do?
You got away with it.
I got away with it.
We ignore it.
If I can forget about it, God forgot about it.
That's really accurate.
Isn't it? That's the way we think. If I can forget about it, so will God. No, his memory is way better than mine, especially these days. Since I turned 39. I can't remember anything, even my age after 39. So I'll just stay there. I'll just stay there. Right. But it's in CR, one of the things that we do, we have them write down an inventory of things that they need to apologize for and make amends for from the past. And people have no idea how liberating that is. It seems hard to start with, but we in teaching to do that, we say start with the easy ones. Because you start with the ones where you think it'll be accepted and that person will be glad that you apologized. And it does, it's easy, and you start to feel the weight lifted. You realize the importance, you realize how beneficial it is, so that by the time you get to the difficult ones, you are ready for it, and you're excited for it. And I think if David would have taken a little more time to not only take over the throne, but to determine what else do I need to do to have this nation ready to be right with God as we move forward. Was he unwilling? No. He just didn't think about it until God reminded him. Would you not agree that 3 years of famine then might actually be God's mercy? Because he's saying, I mean, he could have just wiped them out, but here's a...
Wasn't David at war the whole time?
Yeah, David was at war a lot of this time.
So he wasn't even thinking about what's going on back home.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get to his wars here in a minute. And I'm going to have to speed up because I'm enjoying this, but I've got to get through some stuff. All right, so this story that I just read, verse 1, it says that on account of Saul and his blood-stained house, it is because he put the Gibeonites to death. And I've mentioned this a couple times, reminding you of this story as we've gone through, but who are the Gibeonites?
They're the ones that came and pretended that they'd come from a far distant country and said, make a treaty with us.
And they pretended, they took moldy bread and they took dirty clothes, and
They were their next door neighbor.
and they were the next door neighbors coming to saying, we've come from a far away land and we come to be your friends. Let's do a treaty. And God had told them, don't do a treaty with any but of your neighbors. But they did, because they did not inquire of the Lord.
And they promised it.
And they promised it. And then God said, like it or not, again, covenant faithfulness. Like it or not, you made the decision, but I didn't know. You didn't check with God. And so now you're stuck with it. Said, you will honor your agreement. And then Saul, when he gets on his throne, says, but I don't want them around. So he tries to annihilate and wipe them all out.
And you know what's interesting about that? Saul's great-grandfather was Gibeon.
Saul was a ruthless guy. But Saul tried to wipe them out. Some survived. And now they're living there. Now, so that's the situation. And God is holding Israel accountable for not having covenant faithfulness with the Gibeonites. You understand that? Okay. Now let's see what happens. The king, verse 2, the king summoned the Gibeonites and spoke to them. Now the Gibeonites were not part of Israel, but were survivors of the Amorites. The Israelites had sworn to spare them, but Saul, in his zeal for Israel and Judah, had tried to annihilate them. David asked the Gibeonites, "What shall I do for you? How shall I make atonement so that you will bless the Lord's inheritance?" So, it didn't ask God so much as what do we need to do to make up to them. God's letting them figure this out. So David went to them and said, "What do we need to do to make it up to you for wiping out most of the people you knew?" Can you imagine being asked that question? I mean, how would you answer that? And their answer is actually very merciful. It's very covenant faithfulness focused. Because it basically is saying, well, this is what we think would answer the covenant you're supposed to keep. And let's get back to that covenant. Like it's very, you'll see. Verse 4, the Gibeonites answered him, "Well, we have no right to demand silver or gold from Saul or his family, nor do we have the right to put anyone in Israel to death." Look, for us, this is not about money. We're happy to serve you guys. And we see ourselves as your servants. That was part of the deal back then. As we see ourselves as part of your servants, we don't have the right to demand the death of any Israelite. You're our bosses. That was a very humble response. "What do you want me to do for you?" David asked. They answered the king, "As for the man who destroyed us and plotted against us, so that we have been decimated and have no place anywhere in Israel," regarding that, almost like, oh yeah, that thing, we were decimated and got no place to go. I mean, that's pretty devastating, is it not? Verse 6, "Let 7 of his male descendants be given to us to be killed and their bodies exposed before the Lord at Gibeah of Saul, the Lord's chosen one." So interesting that they don't want it for them. David went to them and said, "God's not happy with us over what Saul did to you. What do we need to do to make that right?" And they came back and said, "It's not about us. This has been a mess. But it is about what we think would lift up the discipline hand of God. So we're going to take these things before the Lord." And it's basically taking the 7 bodies and offering them to the Lord, not to them. They don't want revenge. Do you see that? They're saying, let's take it before the Lord and see if that does it, is kind of the attitude here. So it is, take their bodies exposed before the Lord at Gibeah of Saul, the Lord's chosen one. What did they just call Saul? Why would they call Saul the Lord's chosen one? Because who chose him to be king? The Lord did. All right. When he had warned them not to have a king, we want one. Fine, I'll give you exactly what you want. They wanted a tall, dark, and handsome, good-looking king that would lead them. So they got Saul. They regretted it. But still, it was the Lord's chosen one. They are looking at the person who decimated them and said, that needs to be dealt with, but because he broke the covenant that God said we need to keep. That's an amazing depth of understanding that's happening in this passage. Verse 7. The king spared Mephibosheth, son of Jonathan. All right, now, Mephibosheth is Jonathan's son that David and Jonathan had a pact to protect. In a moment, we're going to see another Mephibosheth. Do not get them confused. There's a different one, you know, named after great uncle Mephibosheth. You know what I'm saying? But why would it be important to remind us that that Mephibosheth continues to live?
It's all about covenant.
It's all about covenant. Jonathan and David made a covenant that David would protect Jonathan's offspring, right? So again, you see the theme is there. Let's keep going. The king spared Mephibosheth, son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, because of the oath before the Lord between David and Jonathan, son of Saul. And it even reminds us it's because of that oath, because of that covenant. Verse 8, but the king took Armani, he must have been a good dresser, and Mephibosheth. See, this is not the same one. The king took Armani and Mephibosheth, the two sons of Ahiah's daughter Rizpah, whom she had borne to Saul. Rizpah is one of Saul's concubines. So one of Saul's concubines had a couple boys, and they were named Armani and Mephibosheth, together with the 5 sons of Saul's daughter Merab. Now, depending on the translation you have, some are going to say Merab, some will say it was Michael. Anybody got that in their translation? All right, Jeff does. I looked into that, and here's the thing. There are mixed reviews on some of the old manuscripts as to whether it was Michael or Merab. And one was David's daughter. The other one, no, the Saul's daughter, or Saul's, like a daughter of one of the other, well, I forget what. It's kind of confusing. Either way, the point was this: in both passages, in both, I mean, that's the only discrepancy. They're not sure which old writing is correct, but the point is absolutely the same, that you've got one that is, the Rizpah is the, how do we say, the sideline bloodline through a concubine, not the royal priesthood or royalty line. Illegitimate to a point, versus the actual royal line. And so 2 are from outside the royal line, but still in the house of Saul. 5 are from within the royal line under the house of Saul. And that's the point. But it's whom she had borne to Adriel, son of Barzillai, the Meheth. This is the hardest part about being a preacher. Going through the Old Testament, reading these names. Thank you. He handed them over to the Gibeonites, who killed them and exposed their bodies on a hill before the Lord. All 7 of them fell together. They were put to death during the first days of the harvest, just as the barley harvest was beginning. The 7 sons probably, I mean, they were legitimately named 7 sons. There weren't 8, there weren't 6. These were 7 that were done. But what's the significance of the number 7? Complete, that's correct. And so they chose 7 to say before the Lord, we want this to be completely dealt with. And so they're waiting to see if God will do that. I want you to see verse 10, just verse 10 for a moment now. Rizpah, daughter of Aiah, took sackcloth and spread it out for herself on a rock. From the beginning of the harvest till the rain poured down from the heavens on the bodies, she did not let the birds touch them by day or wild animals by night. Stop. All right, so Rizpah goes out where the 7 bodies have been killed and hung out before the Lord. And what's she do?
Bodies.
She's protecting the bodies. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Bad thing.
If you're first reading through, you're like, is she going against the king's edict? Right? I mean, you kind of feel like, what is... Here they are, they're punishing these guys, and she comes along and... But that's not what's happening. Kathy, you can give your opinion now.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I was gonna say is, you see God's response to their sacrifice of these men,
Right.
and that the rain comes, and it's significant because it's at the beginning of the barley harvest. It's when they need the rain
Yep.
for the harvest to happen. But what she's doing is she is protecting this sacrifice to the Lord.
Aha. Yeah. And when I first read it, I thought, you know, it's like the king says, we're going to go out and punish these guys and hang them out as a dishonorable thing to show what Saul did. And she's going to go, oh no, I'm going to protect them. And I thought, I wonder how this is going to play out. But God respects what she did, and David respects what she did, and it causes David to take some extra steps. And I'm like, okay, I'm missing something if I think this is bad. And as I looked it over a little bit more, it was protecting the sacrifice. It was saying, look, these 7 men up there are not the ones who did it. They're not the ones being punished, but it was justice being done. And so it was an honor of justice. And even the Gibeonites, as they're wanting justice for themselves against Saul's family, still showed honor and respect to the covenant and said, but Saul was the chosen one of the Lord. And so now they're waiting to see how the Lord would choose and accept this offering.
Tom, is it too much to compare this to Christ, you know, an atoning sacrifice?
No, I don't think so. I think it's all a picture of it. And I mean, in a very real sense, they were substitutionary justice for what Saul had done. But in a very full sense, Jesus Christ is our substitutionary atonement. Hannah.
At first, I did think that she was going against the commandment or the sacrifice, but then I see that she didn't take the bodies and bury them.
Nope.
She protected them right where they were.
Yep.
Protected them from vultures and wild animals by night. That's a lot of. That's like you're staking out.
Yeah. That's
and
dangerous.
camping there for a long time.
Look, the wild animals that would want to come and get that meat.
Could tear her to shreds.
Exactly. She's risking her life
Yeah.
to do this.
And it doesn't say she protected them indefinitely or she protected them until she could bury them or was allowed to bury them or something like that. It says she protected them until the rain poured down. So does that mean that she protected them? Does that mean that the rain was God's acceptance of the sacrifice and she was protecting it until then?
That's a really good question. And I think that's what Kathy was alluding to too, is that she stayed there until, this is famine.
Yeah.
And famine's being caused probably from a drought. And for 3 years it's not rained, now the rain's come. There's an interesting response here. Let's read the response from God and David. And there's one, again, we try to fit the timing of things. God is less concerned about the timing and chronology as what's taking place. Keep that in mind. Verse 11. When David was told what Aiah's daughter Rizpah, Saul's concubine, had done, he went and took the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan from the citizens of Jabesh Gilead. Let me pause. You might remember they're the ones, when Saul and Jonathan were killed, their bodies were stolen, and the people of Jabesh Gilead went and got their bones and brought them back to Jabesh Gilead so that the enemy wouldn't have the bones to dishonor the bodies of Saul and Jonathan. And so in respect for the bodies, this theme sounding familiar, what Rizpah just did with the 7? In respect for the bodies, Jabesh Gilead went and took the bodies from the enemy, risking their lives to get those bones and bring them back. All right, let's keep reading. They had stolen their bodies from the public square at Beth Shan, where the Philistines had hung them after they struck Saul down on Gilboa. David brought the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan from there, and the bones of those who had been killed and exposed were gathered up. They buried the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan in the tomb of Saul's father, Kish, at Zelah in Benjamin, and did everything the king commanded. Stop right there. So what happened is because she showed honor and risked her life for those 7, David honored what the folks at Jabesh Gilead had done with Saul and Jonathan's bodies. Brought them all together to say, we're going to honor them in Saul's father's tomb. All right? Then what's it say? After that, God answered prayer in behalf of the land. So the way I see it is, if you want some chronology, it seems to overlap here, because I do think that the rain is referring to God bringing an end to the judgment on the land. It happens when they show covenant faithfulness to God's anointed, even to Saul and his family, and God is satisfied with not only the death of the 7, but what satisfied God was then the honor of Saul's family. So there's justice and honor at the same time. Am I making this confusing, or is this making sense? Do you see it? So when God said, yes, it wasn't just revenge, we killed 7 and that was what God wanted. But God wanted to see still the respect for that family, even though they needed to have justice because of God's covenant with them. And said, this is the one you asked for king, I choose Saul. And so the fact that it was God's decree, they still honored it. Because of that covenant faithfulness, God lifted this famine in the land and the rains came. But is this making sense? Like, it makes sense to me. I'm not sure if I'm getting it through or not. All right, we got 10 minutes. I want to show you this really. I want to end the chapter. In the 10 minutes, I can do what's even a more fun part, but I can do it quickly. And that's these last few verses. Then you'll see how it's all connected. In 15, once again there was a battle between the Philistines and Israel. Can you see how this is not at the end? Like, this is, once again, there was... David went down with his men to fight against the Philistines. And he became exhausted. And Ishbi-Benob, one of the descendants of Rapha, whose bronze spearhead weighed 300 shekels. All right, if this sounds a lot like Goliath's sword, you're right. Okay, so this guy Rapha, who has this bronze spearhead that weighed 300 shekels, about 7.5 pounds, who was armed with a new sword, said he would kill David. So once David got exhausted, this giant said, I'm going to go take him out now if he's tired. And off he went. But Abishai, son of Zeruiah, came to David's rescue. And he struck the Philistine down and killed him. This, I just want you to think about, does this, I don't want to give it away too early, but I'm going to. Compare how long it took this guy to go after a giant to when they were lined up against the Philistines and Goliath would step down. Who was willing to fight Goliath at the beginning under Saul?
Only David.
Nobody would do it until David showed up. But when it was to protect David, not Saul, it took one of the guys a minute to say, David's in trouble, I'm going after him. And he takes down another Goliath. And I'll show you why I know it's another Goliath here in a moment. Then David's men swore to him, saying, never again will you go out with us to battle, so that the lamp of Israel will not be extinguished. The point is not that David can't fight anymore. The point is, now you are the chosen light of Israel. We cannot let you be expunged. It's covenant faithfulness. It's like we have to protect you because you're the one God put there. David wasn't the warrior he had been anymore. That didn't matter. Did you have a... Go ahead.
But I also think it's just like in any instance, you have a leader that stands behind you with a whip.
Mm-hmm.
You have a leader that's out in front. They seen what David did all his life, and they're willing to. They think they can do it too.
Yeah.
I think it's a double. I think you're right, but I think he led by example.
And that's the thing.
Yeah.
How did the men respond to Goliath? Fear. How did Saul at that time respond to Goliath? Fear. David showed confidence against Goliath. So when the next Goliath comes along, the men that have been with David say, if you can take one down with a stone, I should be able to take one down with my spear. Verse 18, in the course of time, there was another battle with the Philistines at Gob. At that time, Sibekiah, the Hushathite, killed Saph, one of the descendants of Rapha. All right, so there's two descendants of Rapha so far in this passage. Okay, keep that name in mind. In another battle with the Philistines at Gob, Elhanan, son of Jair, the Bethlehemite, killed the brother of Goliath, the Gittite, who had a spear with a shaft like a weaver's rod. Another giant. In still another battle, which took place at Gath, there was a huge man with 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in all. It must have been a big deal to go through all that. How'd you like to be his cobbler? Do you got any gloves for a 6-handed guy here? Or a 6-fingered guy? Nope, we'll have to make one.
My father prepared to die.
No, I knew it. The 6-fingered man. He also was descendant from Rapha. When he taunted Israel, Jonathan, son of Shimea, David's brother, killed him. These 4 were descendants of Rapha and Gath, and they fell at the hands of David by his men. It is my belief, and I could be wrong, but I don't really care. There were 4 brothers or close relatives of Goliath that were also men of renown that fought during this time. How many stones did David take How many did it take to kill Goliath? What were the other 4 for?
These guys.
I think he was ready for them. Otherwise, he'd have picked up one and went running. I don't think he planned on missing. So it shows the confidence, it shows all kinds of things that he's doing. Now here's chapter 21, verses 1 to 14. This is how these are tied together. Is Saul's failure brought curse on the land. But in 15 to 22, David's kingdom defeats the enemies that Saul failed to handle. It's more than just, oh, by the way, there's another one of Saul's messes that David had to clean up. Oh, and then David got tired, his men were carrying on for him. Like that would be such a shallow reading of this chapter. So much more going on, saying, do you see the comparison between Saul and David? The king matters. Your trust in covenant matters. Your faith in God matters. This huge contrast between Saul and David. I think there's another contrast that I don't want us to miss. David was exhausted because he's no longer the young shepherd boy, giant slayer anymore. Heard a sermon one time, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Shepherd. Yeah, never mind. He's not that anymore. Saul's fear passed on to his men. David's courage passed on to his men, so that one giant slayer became 4 more giant slayers. Saul's death, even after his death, continued to bring death. What we do matters a whole lot more than just in this life. I don't want to just be remembered well by my family. I want them to be blessed after I'm gone because of the way I raised them. I want them to face blessing that I'll never be here to see, rather than to have my family after I'm gone and not here to observe it, not worry about what happens to them. And I think that's in here as well. Those who followed Saul are wiped out, while those who followed David slay giants. Saul wanted a name for himself. Saul was jealous. I think there is another intended parallel, that when David killed his giant, how did Saul respond? Jealous. I wanted the attention. But David says, put it in writing, I was exhausted, and these 4 men became the next Davids. There's just so much that's happening here to the Jewish mind that knows the stories, which is why we need to know our Bibles and go through it the way we are, that David, the lamp of Israel, must not be snuffed out, because he's the one through whom the covenant carries. And we're going to see, as we go through 1st and 2nd Kings, the rise and fall of the nation of Israel, or the divided nation of Israel, based on their view of covenant faithfulness. All right, whew, that was a deep one today. Any other comments, questions? You got anything I'm missing?
Just for next week,
Okay.
that when we get to David's song of praise, which kind of ends, we need to go back and look at the beginning of 1 Samuel and look at Hannah's song of praise.
Ooh.
You've got bookends.
Yeah. Would you like to teach next week's lesson? When you get into this poetry stuff, like, that would take me a lot of time.
I could read it all in Hebrew.
Y'all want to hear it in Hebrew? We would hear 30 seconds of it in Hebrew. But, yeah, this is good.
I would be willing to.
I would be honored.
All right.
Thank you. All right. Anything else? Not one of your earth-shattering passages, but your understanding of Scripture is growing so much. I'm proud of y'all. You